Hi, seventh graders. Happy Tuesday. I hope that this lecture finds you doing well. At this point, Mrs. Hackle should have handed out to you your new notes page, so I'm going to let her go ahead and hit pause while you update your table of contents. All right, today we're looking at westward expansion. So last week we had, or I should say I had a couple issues trying to get my Louisiana Purchase lecture to upload. But I know Mrs. Hackle just kind of rolled with the punches, and you guys should have done a little bit of digging on Lewis and Clark and their um, experiences kind of moving or traveling out west and what they encountered. So we'll actually come back to that just a little bit later today. But what I'm going to have Mrs. Hackle do is go ahead and hit pause again and have her play for you, those super fantastic, wonderful songs that you love from Schoolhouse Rock. And this one's on Elbow Room. So I'll go ahead and let her do that right now. All right, so I hope that you enjoyed the song and that you are forever singing it in your head. Maybe one of these days, one of those songs will stick with you. But what we're going to do, go ahead and grab some colored pencils. Um, Feel free to share with the people around you. I know there's that bucket of colored pencils either in the back or front of the room. Um, you don't need anything super fancy. We're just doing this so it kind of helps break up some of the monotony of class today. I just want to remind you, color appropriately and make sure that you label all the items that we're going over today as best you can because they're test questions. All right, so if we need to hit pause, I'll go ahead and let you do that. Just gather your stuff and then we'll pick up on the next slide. All right, so we are starting with your expansion map. I don't even remember what page this is in your binder. Let's go ahead and peek real quick. 38. Perfect. All right, so we're picking up with page 38 today. You're going to color that first original area there on the right-hand side, and I just want you to label it 13 original colonies. I know that you can't necessarily see everything that's going to be projected on the board for you, so I just want you to do the best that you can. So again, you're going to color and label this area the 13 original colonies, and I'm going to just kind of let Mrs. Hackle sit and hit pause as we go through this today. So go ahead and get rolling on that. The next area that we have is U.S. territories in 1783. So again, you'll go ahead and color this area and you'll label it U.S. territories in 1783, and you'll want to label that we got it from Great Britain. So for those of you who remember things from the American Revolution, you would recall then that we gained this territory at the end of the war and that it was quote unquote given to us. Again, I'll let Mrs. Hackle hit pause while you go ahead and finish coloring and labeling. As we go through this, please make sure again you're labeling each country that we buy or receive the land from. Up next, we have the Louisiana Purchase. This is from France in 1803. Again, you will want to make sure you write down Louisiana Purchase from France, 1803. I'll go ahead and let Mrs. Hackle hit pause. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and flip to the 5 reasons for the Louisiana Purchase on page 39, and we'll go ahead and fill in that note. So we have 5 reasons. Again, I'm going to list 5 right here on this slide. You should write them all down. I'll pause again so that you have time to update your notes. So the first reason for the Louisiana Purchase, we gain 828,000 square miles. This is a lot of land. Another big reason, we paid 3 cents an acre. It cost us $15 million for the Louisiana Purchase, which back then seems like a lot of money, but even when it converts to today's money, not that much cash. The third reason, We gained control of the Mississippi River and the port of New Orleans. So for those of you who have kind of paid attention, or maybe you have an idea, or recall me talking about it, anytime you look at rivers or ports, those bodies of water, you guys, it's literally, you don't just have water flowing, that's literally where your money flows from. So the Mississippi River would allow us to transport goods from the north down to the south. The Port of New Orleans is going to become this huge, huge, huge trading hub, especially for the south. Something to keep in mind, the Port of New Orleans, it's going to play a huge role even as we get closer to the Civil War here in the next couple weeks with our studies. The fourth reason, Lewis and Clark are ready to explore. Thomas Jefferson has these guys who are basically begging him to go out west and to see what it is out there in that uncharted territory, and he's willing to send them. And then our fifth reason, we have more land for immigrants to settle. As the United States is expanding its population, we are finding that we're going to run out of more room if we don't gain a little bit of land. And so that's exactly what we do. Again, I'll let Mrs. Hackle hit pause while you finish writing down these 5 reasons. When you are done with this, I'm going to ask that you turn back to the expansion map on page 38. Okay, I lied. You need to stay on page 39. And I even reviewed all this beforehand, and I thought I was ready to do this. All right, on the bottom of page 39, okay, I'll even stop this and show you. On the very bottom of page 39, we are filling in this manifest destiny part right down here. So I'm going to go ahead and let you write down this definition because this is actually a test question. So manifest destiny is a belief that the U.S. is destined to control all lands from the Atlantic to the Pacific, so from east to west. So now I'll let Mrs. Hackle hit pause if she needs to. So with manifest destiny, we have this desire again to control all the land from the Atlantic to the Pacific. The British cession will be the next piece that we see. So the United States and Great Britain are going to agree to a new boundary line that involves the 49th parallel. So at this point now, if you're done with your notes on page 39, I'm going to have you flip back to page 38. And I want you to look at that northern border of the United States there. And we see really kind of like that straight line. That's the 49th parallel. So it was thought that a straight line boundary would be easier to survey than a pre-existing boundary that was based on watersheds. It was kind of zigzaggy, looked a little funky. So if you're wondering what a cession is the formal giving up of rights, property, or territory. So Great Britain formally gave up this land just because they assumed it would be easier to survey. So when we look at it, it's this piece right up here that borders the edge of Minnesota and actually takes up a good chunk of North Dakota. So you will write down the British cession. If you want to, you can make note of the 49th parallel. And I'll let Mrs. Hackle hit pause while you finish updating your map. Florida. So Spain had a hold on Florida. And Florida becomes this big place of disputes. Eventually, Secretary of State John Quincy Adams in 1819 will convince Spain to sell Florida to the United States, and we actually buy Florida for $5 million. So if you look at the size of it, we pay a third of what we paid for the Louisiana Purchase just to gain tiny little Florida. Now on your map, I know I got to go in and open the map up real quick. I know Florida is broken down into 2 pieces. I'm just going to have you color the whole piece, if that's okay with you. So, or 3 pieces. You just go ahead and color, again, all of Florida. Okay, don't worry about these pieces here. Just color all of Florida. Again, we gain this for $5 million. There it is, Florida from Spain, 1819. I'll let Mrs. Hackle hit pause if she needs to. Moving on to Texas. Texas is going to become independent after its annexation from Mexico. After it removes itself from Mexico, I should say. So Mexico will warn the United States to not annex or take control of Texas. We offer to buy California from Mexico instead. And Hispanics are convinced at this point now that the U.S. intended to take the entire continent. So we're not just looking at what is considered to be the United States. They assume we want all of Mexico and all of Canada. So we have the Texas annexation. This will happen in 1845. If you've caught on, my PowerPoint is so wonky, and I apologize. Last year, when we had to take everything or reconvert things from Moodle, all the PowerPoints I had when converted into Google Docs did not upload the way they were supposed to. So Florida, 1819. Texas annexation will happen in 1845 from Mexico. I'll go ahead and let Mrs. Hackle hit pause if need be. And then once you have this colored in, I actually want you to flip to page, would it be 40, which is going to be the 5 W's of the Mexican-American War. So when we look at the Mexican-American War, we obviously have two countries involved. We have the United States and Mexico. Now, Americans are going to have this negative view of Mexico because of the Texas Revolution. So the revolution occurred when Texas left Mexico. Mexico owed the United States money from the Mexican Revolution that they had against Spain. So there's a lot of little revolutions going on at this time. When you think of the American Revolution, right, we were technically still part of Great Britain. We broke away, hence the American Revolution. Texas was still part of Mexico. They're trying to break away, hence the Texas Revolution. And it's the same for Mexico with Spain as well. Okay, just to kind of get you caught up there. So again, we have a negative view of Mexico, and Mexico owes us money. And so that's why we're kind of willing to step up and maybe say or do more than we're supposed to. Mexico, on the other hand, felt that Texas was being stolen from them, and they did not believe in manifest destiny and did not want to give away their land. And so war begins. On April 25th, 1846, Mexican and American forces are going to clash in disputed territory. This is basically what this all comes down to. This isn't even is the U.S. stealing Texas or not? Texas decides that they want to join the United States, and this is simply a war over the border of Texas. And I'll show you the map here in just a moment. We're going to see 11 American soldiers killed, and the U.S. will declare war 2 days later. So if you're wondering again why we're fighting this, we're fighting over a border dispute. And why I didn't use blue on this, I still don't know to identify the rivers. So we're literally arguing over this red piece of land here. This is kind of that disputed territory. And the United States will say, no, the Rio Grande is the border, right? Because then we gain more land. And Mexico says, no, the Nueces River is the border because then they gain this piece of land here. So we're fighting over which river is going to be the border of Texas. Now, as you know, the Rio Grande will be the border that we still have today, and Mexico is not going to win this war. Now, the 5 W's, the first 4 that I will have you write down are right up there on the board. So again, I believe we're on page 40 of your notes. Are who? We have Mexico and the United States win April 1846 to 1848. Where? We're in Texas is where this is occurring. And what is the war over? It's a dispute over the Texas border. So I'll go ahead and let Mrs. Hackle hit pause, and then I'll meet you on the next slide. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo is going to be what ends the Mexican-American War in 1848. Now, if we're following along with our 5 W's of the war, we have our why. And our why section has 3 reasons. So you are not writing this simply scrunched up all under one. You're going to list, I have the 3 reasons underlined here, so just list them accordingly. So the first reason why this war was so important. Mexico agreed to the border of Texas at the Rio Grande. Next, we gained the California and Southwest Territory. Within the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, we paid Mexico $15 million, and then we forgave them $3 million in debt. And the last reason why this war was important is because we gained this land, it allowed immigrants to flood to the new territory. So I'll let Mrs. Hackle go ahead and hit pause. Again, these are your 3 reasons for why the Mexican-American War was so important. All right, so Oregon Territory, we pick up this piece. Great Britain agreed to split Oregon Territory with the United States in 1846, right along the 49th parallel. So the interesting part about the Oregon Territory is that while we are just getting started with a war with Mexico, we're still dealing with land expansion. Because again, the Mexican-American War started in April of 1846. Oregon Territory is assumed right around the same time. So Oregon will become a territory in 1848 officially is when it's adopted by Congress. So I'll go ahead and let you color in that area. Again, Oregon Territory is given to us from Great Britain. So again, at this point now, we can see this 49th parallel in the straight line that the U.S. border is. The Gadsden Purchase of 1853. The U.S. is going to pay Mexico another $10 million for the southern parts of present-day Arizona and New Mexico. It's this tiny, tiny, tiny little land. And the land was needed for the expansion of the railroads. I don't know if you want to write that somewhere on your map, but that will be a test question. Again, the land was needed for the expansion of the railroad. Because if you think about it geographically, what is to the north of the Gadsden Purchase? Okay, I'll let you go ahead and start coloring. Again, think about the Gadsden Purchase here. What's to the north of the Gadsden Purchase? Geographically, we have the Rocky Mountains and the Grand Canyon. Now, there's no way physically for the railroad to go right through it, and so they buy the Gadsden Purchase as a way to get the railroad to go around the mountains and the Grand Canyon. So looking at your map, I know we kind of hightailed it through some stuff today. We have the 13 original colonies, the U.S. territories that we gained in 1783, Louisiana purchased from France in 1803. Florida will be purchased from Spain in 1819. The British cession will happen there in 1818. Then we have Texas annexation from Mexico in 1845. Oregon Territory, 1846, California and Southwest Territory, 1848, and the Gadsden Purchase there in 1853. And then if Mrs. Hackle needs to hit pause so that you can finish coloring and have everything written down, I'll go ahead and let her do so. And then when you're done, I'll go ahead and have you join me back up at the front of the room. So I want to go over your test with you that you're going to have next week, because this week is going to be kind of a hodgepodge of trying to get things completed and filled in. So on your test, one of your questions is, geographically speaking, why did we buy the Gadsden Purchase from Mexico? So again, geographically, it's because we need to get the railroad around the Rocky Mountains. So if you haven't, I'm going to encourage you to go back to your map and just write down here where you labeled everything. I would write that down, okay? Bought it to get around the Rocky Mountains. You will have to write that in on your test. It'll be on your study guide. We will keep reminding you about this question. But why don't you go ahead and just take a minute to get that written down. Up next, we have the multiple choice questions, all about expansion. So I'll ask you, what is Manifest Destiny? Who did we buy the Louisiana Purchase from? 3 reasons for the Louisiana Purchase. So you listed 5 in your notes. From there, you will have to give me 3 reasons for the test. One of the questions, or one of the things you should know, which I'm going to throw it out there right now, from that music video last Friday or Thursday, one of the days, Thursday, there we go, is who's the name of the woman who helped Lewis and Clark? And we know that the answer is C. Number 5, who did we buy Florida from? How did we acquire the territories of 1783? And if you think about it, it's the deal that we made with Great Britain with the Treaty of Paris after the Revolutionary War. I'll ask you, what started the Mexican-American War? What became the new border of Texas? What area of land did we buy from Mexico as listed in the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo? Which again, if you need to make note, that's your California and Southwest Territory. So if you need to go back through on this piece of land right here and make note of that, I would, because these are your test questions and they're not changing. And then the British Cession and Oregon Territory were given to us by Great Britain for what reason? And you have to look at those options there. So that is a third of your test, a little bit more than that. One of the last things that we'll be looking at will be the California Gold Rush. And we'll go over that on Monday as you get ready to start prepping for your test that you will take on Tuesday. So again, at this point, again, today was kind of fast. You should have your expansion map all filled in. Your Louisiana Purchase notes should be updated. And you should have filled in your Mexican-American War notes as well. Tomorrow, you get kind of a break. I think you'll enjoy tomorrow. Thursday, we need to cover the Native American Removal Acts. So Thursday will be interesting because I haven't quite figured out how we're going to go about all of this. I think Mrs. Hackwell will be kind of in charge of leading most of Thursday. And then on Friday, you will have a reading to complete on the California Gold Rush. And then Monday we'll review. Tuesday you'll take your test. And then Wednesday will be kind of our day to get caught up on anything we might need before you leave for Thanksgiving break, which starts on Thursday. So that's kind of our plan. And then when you come back from Thanksgiving, we're going to roll right on into the United States and what's going on prior to the Civil War. So we have quite a bit planned. So things for me are going pretty well. I got to come back home for the first time late Sunday night, and that's been interesting because I haven't been here for a month. Troy is still doing really well. I'll be heading back up to the hospital actually today while you're listening to this. I get to hold him for about an hour or 2 every day. He's still hooked up to some stuff, so there's not much I can do. He's still being fed through a tube. He's gained some weight. He weighs a whopping 2 pounds, 9.3 ounces, which for him is actually, he's gaining about an ounce a day, which is huge. He graduated from his CPAP mask last week. So I think the last time I showed you guys pictures of him, he had that weird looking mask around his nose and his kind of came up his forehead and was strapped around his head and stuff. And now he has this nasal flow instead. So here's a picture of him. He has a tiny, tiny, tiny little teddy bear, because believe me, that teddy bear is actually very small. That Tessney made sure she had for him. And he's so much happier with that little nasal flow. He's able to open his eyes more and things like that. And then you can see his little feeding tube right here. But he still has a good amount of hair. He's actually a very hairy little baby. He's got hair all along his arms and his back, which you can't see very well. And something tells me he's going to have his dad and sister's ears. He has big ears, but they're still pretty cute. But no, he's a really happy baby and he's doing well. I changed his diaper again the other day and he peed on me for the second time in his life. So we're bonding. If that's any indicator of what he's going to be like as a toddler, Mrs. L might have some challenges ahead. But he's a great little baby and we love him very much. When we snuggle, we watch the History Channel. So don't worry, I'm making sure that I still get my history and I'm raising him up right. Um, Again, thank you for being so well behaved for Mrs. Hackle and just staying on top of things. I do need to get some grades in the grade book for quarter two. I'll be working on those here this week now that I have papers and stuff. And honestly, with his machines changing, his room is a little bit quieter and easier to be in. So I should be able to get more done up in the hospital as well. Feel free to email me if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. And again, just thank you for being so well behaved. I really appreciate it. And I miss you guys very much. So you will hear from me again on Thursday. Have a good couple of days. See you guys then. Bye.